of forms of incarnations, and the specific adventures found in those transcendental forms are all auspicious. Both those who are present during such activities and those who hear the transcendental narrations of such activities are benefited. And repeat after me. No, I'll just repeat. You've already. O wise Sutta, please narrate to us the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Godhead's multi-incarnations. Such auspicious adventures and pastimes of the Lord, the Supreme Controller, are performed by His internal powers. So naturally we are reminded of the verse in the Brahma Samhita, Advaitamachutam anadim anantarupam adhyam purana purusham navayovanamcha videshi dulabam adulabam atmabhaktav govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. Lord Brahma is offering his prayers to the Lord, praising and glorifying Him, and explaining how the Lord, Anantarupam, He takes on unlimited forms to perform unlimited pastimes in the material world. His mercy actually upon all of us, and indicating how the Lord, through all of these different incarnations, very much desires to bring back the fallen conditioned souls who are simply loitering in this material world back home, back to Godhead. So a few nice points here. It is mentioned in the text that the Lord performs all of these pastimes through His internal energies. In other words, when the Lord comes in the material world, He appears and performs His pastimes without any tinge of contamination with the material energy, with the modes of material nature. The Lord always, constantly remains in His transcendental position as Sachit Ananda Vigraha. Ishvara Paramat Krishna Sachit Ananda Vigraha. And we also, being His part and parcel, have the same nature, have the same qualities. And the Lord descends in the material world to give us, again, an opportunity to regain and revive our original nature, our original spiritual nature. So in the purport here, Prabhupada very nicely is making the point that naturally the Lord's appearance in the material world is most auspicious, and what is also auspicious are those who are getting opportunity to be part of those pastimes. And in addition to those who are getting that opportunity to be part of the pastimes of the Lord, anyone who hears about these pastimes, anyone who gets an opportunity to learn about these pastimes, that is also most auspicious. It is by actually becoming part of these pastimes of the Lord. Just like Srila Prabhupada explains, I believe in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we know that the Chaitanya Charitamrita, as given to us by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, is one of the most exalted literatures describing these pastimes of the Lord. And in one of those purports, Srila Prabhupada explains how, although these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya appeared 535 years ago to perform his wonderful pastimes within a very, very short period of time. Lord Krishna performed his pastimes covering 125 years. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his pastimes within 48 years, much shorter. So Prabhupada explains how these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are continuing today. And all of us sitting here, all of us who are connected with this movement, this society, with the Krishna consciousness movement, as inaugurated by our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, all of us are getting an opportunity, whether we realize or not. Actually, we should try to realize and understand. The more we actually do that, the more we are able to understand that we are given an opportunity to actually become part of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These pastimes of the Lord, they are nitya, eternal. The same mission, the same purpose of the Lord continues and is enacted at different times within the material world. And only those very, very fortunate souls get an opportunity to become connected. And the responsibility of how we become connected lies upon each and every one of us. Some are very closely connected, some are somewhat at a distance connected, some are connected, become disconnected. All kinds of varieties are there. It becomes, even to become connected for a short time and then become disconnected, that is our great fortune, because Prabhupada, Krishna explains actually in the Bhagavad Gita, that any activity performed in devotional service, it is our permanent asset. It becomes our permanent asset. At the same time, Srila Prabhupada also explained why unnecessarily take more time here in the material world. Why not just decide? Why not just really try to understand? I have been around in this material world for a long time, very, very long time. And I have had so many opportunities in the past. Why don't I just take this one short lifetime of Kali Yuga? Kali Yuga is a short lifetime. In other yugas, people live for 1,000, 10,000. If one is in Yuga, up to 100,000 years. Our lifespan is very short. But by the most extraordinary pastime performed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is the unique, unparalleled opportunity that all of us have, actually, by becoming really fixed up in the pastime of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by becoming really connected with what is actually meant to happen, what actually took place 500 years ago when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his pastimes. And we read about it, of course, especially in literatures like the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where people, we see different paintings actually of Panchatattva and devotees, performing kirtan. and people are falling unconscious, rolling on the ground. Very intense, very intense. We actually should become intense in the sense of being very absorbed. Praying, at least we should pray to the Lord. We should pray to the Lord to become very absorbed, very connected. Because the more we are connected with Krishna, the less we are connected with Maya, isn't it? Our problem is that we're not sufficiently connected with Krishna. These are the only, basically, two connections we can have. These are the two realities in life. There is, on the one side, Krishna, and on the other side, Maya. So, our acharyas, our Vaishnava acharyas, naturally, because they were situated on this very elevated platform of self-realization, they were totally, completely, fully, constantly absorbed in these pastimes of the Lord. And especially, we can say our more recent acharyas, beginning with Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they understood, all of our acharyas, but especially more recently, because we know them, we have a more intimate connection. They, by their activities and by their writings and their words, they demonstrated how they were completely taken up, completely connected, absorbed in the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is a question of connecting through the process, especially two main processes which are recommended by our acharyas. One is, of course, by hearing attentively about these pastimes of the Lord. And secondly, the more we hear attentively, the more we will act on what we are hearing. In other words, hearing is one aspect, and then the other one, serving, engaging in serving in the mission of the Lord. Actually, we should understand, we should know that there is but one primary mission of life, and that is to develop our higher consciousness. And one of the best ways to do that, actually, it's practically impossible to develop that consciousness without becoming very actively connected, actively involved in the preaching mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which in many ways, because Lord Chaitanya is not different from Krishna, is the same mission as Lord Krishna. We can see in the different prayers composed by Srila Prabhupada upon arriving in America, his very nice poem that he composed in Bengali, Markine Bhagavad Dharma, very nicely expressing this mood and this mentality of Prabhupada knew, he understood that he was instrumental. His Guru Maharaj and Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, were giving him that great fortune and great opportunity of introducing that mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Western world. We are still, even though Srila Prabhupada performed these pastimes, going back, a little bit more than 50 years. We just celebrated our Golden Jubilee in 2016, celebrating the 50th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada establishing or incorporating the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Srila Prabhupada's mission, which is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, continues today. By becoming more and more connected, with this mission, then we also, what happens is that we become absorbed. We become more and more under the shelter of Krishna's internal energy. We are living in the world, in the material world, the external energy of the Lord. And the only way to actually become protected from all of the bad elements, all of the difficulties and sufferings of this material world, is by taking more and more shelter of the Lord's internal energy. And his mission, the Lord's mission, is an expression of that internal energy, because all of our activities, just like this building, this property before was just zero, nothing. I mean, when I came here, I don't know, some months back, quite a few months back, it was nothing. But, within a short time, by the endeavor of the devotees, by the desire of the devotees, by the desire of Srila Prabhupada, and the desire of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's like out of nowhere, a beautiful temple, which is giving opportunity for people in the area especially to have darshan of the Lord, to participate, to begin understanding this mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is now available. So there are so many ways in which people can become and should become connected, and ultimately it is the responsibility of each and every one of us. Krishna is very anxious to connect us. Krishna is very anxious to engage us in his service. We simply have to demonstrate a little desire to want to be involved, and Krishna will help in unlimited ways, actually. When Srila Prabhupada began his movement, he had, not only when he began, even before going to America, and even after establishing the movement in 1966, Srila Prabhupada always had so many different plans. Krishna was just inspiring more and more. There is that nice verse that I often like to quote because it's in the first canto of the Bhagvatham. Sometimes I feel like I'm in a hospital, Anyways, in the chapter Divinity and Divine Service, actually, in that Markini Bhagavad Dharma, Srila Prabhupada chose 5, I would say, essential verses from that particular chapter, Divinity and Divine Service, because within 5 verses, the whole Krishna conscious philosophy is summarized. And it begins with Srimvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Sravana Kirtana Ridanta Stoya Bhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Very famous, well-known verse. And the one that comes to mind in relation to becoming inspired. We cannot remain in Krishna consciousness if we are not inspired. We cannot become uninspired by Maya unless we become inspired by Krishna. Otherwise, Maya will inspire us. Maya will attract us, will allure us. Because she's very powerful, and that's her duty. She's been given that responsibility. So the verse that comes to mind which again is well known. Many of you, I'm sure, may know it as well. Evam prasanna manaso. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnana mukta sangasya jayate. Very wonderful verse explaining how those who made that endeavor by taking up the recommended practices given in the Shastra, given by our acharyas, means those who engage seriously in sadhana bhakti. We come to the level of goodness, mode of goodness. Otherwise, actually, by remaining in the lower modes of nature, these verses actually very nicely explain all of that. Our efforts in being regulated by rising early in the morning every day, by chanting our rounds, by hearing Bhagavatam, all of these activities help us become firmly established in the mode of goodness. Forget about going beyond the mode of goodness if we cannot become to that platform, if we cannot become elevated to that platform. So one of the first characteristics of the mode of goodness is that the mind becomes peaceful. Evam prasanna. Brahma bhuta prasanatma. Same thing. One who attains the level of Brahman realization. One who's really convinced and also endeavoring to develop his spiritual consciousness. He attains that level of tranquility of mind, peace of mind. So, evam prasanna manaso bhagavat bhakti yogataha. With a peaceful mind, one can nicely engage in activities of devotional service. If our mind is constantly disturbed, we cannot properly practice bhakti yoga. Mind needs to be peaceful. Mind becomes peaceful when we are situated in the mode of goodness. And then what happens? Bhagavat bhakti yogataha, then Bhagavat tattva vijnanam. Bhagavat tattva vijnanam. It's all about tattva. Just like Srila Jiva Goswami, his satsangarbhas are all about tattva. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Dasamulya tattva, explaining about the 10 tattva. Tattva means what is the absolute truth, you see. The philosophy, especially given by in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, is a very, very deep philosophy, very profound, and very complete, the most complete. That's why we're here, why we're attracted. So Bhagavat Tattva Vijnana is most important. Krishna, who is seated within our heart, he is anxious to give us this Vijnana. Vijnana means transcendental knowledge, isn't it? We can read books and we can, acquire different kinds of knowledge. That's what people try to do in modern day education through different courses, etc. This kind of knowledge is very special, is especially awarded or given by the Lord to those who are actually qualified, those who are ready to receive this knowledge. Those who are ready to begin associating with Krishna. We cannot associate with Krishna. Krishna, he is the purest. Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam, Pavitram, Idam Uttamam. He is the purest of all living entities. So we cannot so easily, in our conditioned state, in our impure state, impure consciousness, associate with the Lord. Therefore, when we take up to the process as given by our Goswamis and all of the previous acharyas, then gradually we can come to that level. We must come to that level. If we don't come to that level, we will not remain in Krishna consciousness. Very difficult. Actually impossible. Unless we develop gradually this higher consciousness, which involves, of course, developing a taste for practicing Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada explains actually in one purport in the Bhagvatam Is there a clock around here? Not yet. Okay. In one purport of the Bhagvatham, Srila Prabhupada explains that there are two ways for one to actually to be situated and absorbed in transcendental consciousness. The first, of course, is when one attains the level of Paramahamsa, which is not so easy, which is very rare, isn't it? After many lifetimes, one gets an opportunity to practice Krishna consciousness, and by properly following in this way, by the mercy of the Lord, one will actually come to that platform. The second way, fortunately, there is another way whereby one can also become very absorbed. And that second process, or that second way, Prabhupada explains, is through preaching. By becoming connected, involved, and absorbed in the preaching mission of the Lord. The message being given here by Srila Prabhupada, and in the text also, is that whenever the Lord performs His pastimes, those who are present, they are most fortunate, because the performance of the Lord's pastime is the most auspicious activity that can take place on the planet. So those who are present with the Lord are most fortunate, and anyone who hears about those pastimes. So the point I'm trying to make here is that Lord Chaitanya, appeared 500 plus years ago, but His pastimes are continuing today, isn't it? The pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will continue for the next 10,000 years. We somehow, by some great fortune, we happen to have taken both. It's not by accident. There's some kind of, some reason is there. We have taken this birth at this particular time, most auspicious time of, within, it's not only a question of within Kali Yuga, which is quite short, 432,000 years, compared to one day of Lord Brahma. But it is only during this one day of Lord Brahma, during one particular Kali Yuga. I mean, if we stop and think about this, it is beyond our imagination how rare it is to get this kind of opportunity, to be connected so closely, so intimately connected with Krishna and His pastimes as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There is, maybe I'll close on this point here. Not only is there unlimited opportunities to become involved and connected with this mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, but also there is a tremendous need today for young people especially, but for everyone also, to be involved in this preaching mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We all understand how the world situation is very critical, very pathetic. People are suffering like anything due to increased activities of adharma, isn't it? And we know, as devotees, we know from Shastra that unless and until one takes up to the principles of dharma, either individually in our own lives, we cannot actually be happy, and also in terms of society cannot function properly unless it is following the principles of dharma. So dharma is very central, must become, if it is not, must become very central in our lives on a daily basis for all of us. And the understanding or realization of tattva is also an integral part of that. So we understand more about tattva, about Lord, who is Krishna, by especially hearing, but also by becoming qualified so that Krishna can reciprocate, so that Krishna can actually reveal himself since he is seated within all of us as Paramatma, and also very anxious to inspire us, very anxious to give us opportunities to engage in his mission. I would like to maybe close now, maybe leave a few minutes if time is there for any either comments or questions by anyone. Don't be shy. Is there a microphone? Mic is just coming. There's the mic. Yes. Very slowly coming.
Maharaj, very nice to hear from you this morning. How many pastimes of Lord Krishna are there, and how glorious to hear them. Unlimited. I mean, as much you hear, you develop so much taste for that. But at the same time, I mean, as you said, Maya is also very strong. Even though we hear the glories of Krishna, I mean, there is very much chance of getting attracted to Maya, especially watching TV and all. Every day morning, there will be debate among the leaders, like he has done this, he has done that, I mean, political leaders. It's like a continuously argument, and we get attracted to that. So Maya,
turn it off.
Maya is also very strong. So I happened to present in one of the meetings. There were a few top leaders. The first leader has come. Our leader has done scheme 1, this, 2, 3, 4. And the other leader comes, he also repeats the same thing, 1, 2, 3, and he says, there are many, if we keep on saying, even one day is not enough. But unfortunately, everyone is speaking the same thing. It's not much actually.
Yes, it's called chewing the tube. Chewing the tube.
When they want to project, there are many things done by this leader, but everyone is telling scheme number 1, scheme number 2, scheme number 3, that's it. And repeatedly the same thing they are telling. There is not much to tell anything at all.
So why continue listening to that? So you're telling that people are giving different arguments, etc. like that. Yeah. So what actually is the question?
Just a comment, mark. On the other hand, you have so many things where you can. So much Krishna conscious.
Yes. So that is why, that's the point you're making, eh? Yeah. So that is why it is absolutely essential. It's like, politics. Yeah. Because political leaders, you're giving the example of political leaders, they have a lot to say. Unfortunately, it's rather baseless. Because the foundation is not there, proper foundation is not there, proper understanding. Therefore, politics is, Krishna is known as the greatest politician. So politics can't be that bad. Krishna is the greatest politician. So the idea is that one of the 4 sciences in the Vedic culture there is called Chaturvidya. Chaturvidya, beginning with Anvikshiki, then Trayi, then, the science of politics, then the Niti, and then the 4th science is called the science of economics, Bhagvatham. So these are the standard sciences which, should I ask the question, how many of you have studied these 4 sciences? Not many hands up. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So the idea is that all of the knowledge that we need, both spiritual and material, is within the Vedic literatures. And therefore, there is a place for politics, there is a place for economic development, you see. There is a place for education, but it all begins with the first of the four sciences, which is Anvikshiki, the science of philosophy. Those who attend Bhagavatam class get an opportunity to become well situated in this beginning of all sciences. If one properly hears Bhagavatam, if one properly understands Tattva, and everything else, he will be able to understand whether it is proper or improper. And because most people, most leaders in the world today, Prabhupada used many terms, not so nice terms, also describing, he called people rascals, especially leaders around the world who are introducing all kinds of legislation largely based on dharmic principles. They are doing the greatest disservice, actually, to humanity. So this is part of the mission. Part of the mission is not only ourselves to become, advanced spiritually, but part of the mission is to reintroduce a God-conscious government in the world, eventually. And that is possible by introducing widely at all levels, including the topmost level within our society, and by having some of our devotees also become qualified. Now emphasis is on devotees becoming qualified brahmanas, which is good. We should be doing a lot more than we're doing, but also we need to introduce, this was Prabhupada's expectation and request as well, not only we introduce Brahminical culture, we must also introduce Kshatriya culture, we must also introduce Vaishya culture, we must also introduce Shudra culture. A lot of misconceptions are there actually, but this is if we want to organize society properly, we must understand what is the meaning and the significance and the makeup, so to speak, of Vedic culture. And that Vedic culture is based on the science of Varna and Asrama, actually. That's a whole big topic in itself. I see you have the mic in your hand.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you very much for such a nice, beautiful class. So nicely emphasized so much on the mission and serving the mission.
Yeah.
So, Maharaj, I just wanted to ask you one thing. At one point in the class, you mentioned that in one of the programs where you read Prabhupada mentioning the easiest ways to.
Yeah.
One is being Paramhamsa, and the second one I missed.
Okay.
But later on you said by preaching. But
yes. Yeah.
Can you please repeat that?
Yes. Okay. So the two ways in which one can really become fully absorbed. Naturally, the Parahamsa is fully absorbed. He's only thinking about Krishna, but it is not at all easy, as we know. So therefore, Prabhupada explains there is another option, fortunately, for all of us, and that is to become, in a similar way that a Paramahamsa is fully absorbed in thinking about Krishna, in remembering Krishna, in seeing Krishna. That's his, that was the position of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. For the last 18 years of his manifest pastimes in Jagannath Puri, he was simply, he was totally internal, had lost contact with the external world. So the second way in which we can also become similar to that, absorbed, is by connecting, by becoming involved, by becoming absorbed in the preaching mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the preaching mission of our founder Acharya. And there are unlimited opportunities. Unlimited opportunities. Simply we need to have a small desire. Just a small desire. Before we make one step towards Krishna, Krishna makes 100 steps towards us, isn't it? Prabhupada says, actually we're not serious. We are not serious with the material world. But Krishna, he is more anxious than we ever will be to take us out of our miserable condition, you see. So this is a great opportunity for all of us because this mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is still in its early pioneering stages. Each one of you actually can become a pioneer because there's so many fields and so many ways in which the mission can actually be introduced. Just like we've seen in the last 2 years because of this pandemic. You know, devotees have found different avenues, different ways to reach out to people, you know. So we don't have to wait for pandemics to find ways, but if we simply need to have a pinch of desire. And of course, the stronger our desire is, then Krishna will accordingly reciprocate with us. So this is like Krishna, paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya sadhuskritam dharma samstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. The Lord comes to reestablish the principles of religion. Prabhupada explains, actually, just hearing a lecture of Prabhupada a few days ago, Prabhupada is explaining Lord Chaitanya, actually, his mission is the same as Lord Krishna. Krishna comes to annihilate the miscreants and to establish the dharma. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes also to kill the demoniac mentality. To kill, to destroy the demoniac mentality of those who are asuric in mentality. And to Bolo Krishna, Bhaja Krishna, Koro Krishna Shikha. Same mission actually. Yeah. Little slightly different in that Krishna was directly killing, annihilating demons. Now we are killing the mentality of the maniac persons by giving them this opportunity of reading the Bhagvatham, hearing the Bhagvatham, hearing the holy name, taking Krishna Prasadam, so many different ways like that. We have so many departments within our society. There's really, Prabhupada has given us, especially Prabhupada's mission, and maybe I'll just close on this point here because we have to close at some time. Prabhupada's mission, for those who may not yet know, everyone listening? For those who may not yet know, 50% of Prabhupada's mission is yet to be accomplished. He told himself, 50% of my mission is yet to be fulfilled, and that is of establishing Varnashrama Dharma. That's a whole topic in itself, which we cannot begin. We would need another class for that, but maybe next time, whenever Krishna arranges. So my humble request to everyone, all of you are extremely fortunate because you're sitting here, because you're somehow connected with this great mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by the mercy of our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada. We are going through history, and the history is that within a very few short years, the first generation of this mission will no longer be sitting on the Vyasa-san. Within a very short time, 10 years or so, most of Prabhupada's disciples will simply not be around. Therefore, the responsibility falls more and more on the shoulder of our second and third and fourth generation of devotees. Many are coming forward